Yo, what's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Coffee Pod. My name is Chisha Zed.
Drink the coffee, it'll make you feel better.
Dr. Umar Johnson recently chimed in on the passing of Kevin Samuels. Now, he addresses everything, and his take on Kevin Samuels is surprising. Why? Because Umar Johnson is usually very off when he talks about these type of situations, right? But unlike a lot of other public figures who just sounded like they didn't know what they were talking about, aka Derek Jackson, Umar hit a few points that I agreed on. And after you listen to what he had to say, I'd like to know your opinion. Comment down below and let me know what you thought. All right, guys, let's get into it.
This week we saw the passing of the prophet Kevin Samuels, who is a polarizing figure primarily for telling the truth. So why do you think we've seen such polarization over his death and many black women celebrating as if, they had just vanquished Thanos at the end of the Avengers or something when it comes to the passing of Kevin Samuels?
Here's what I would say. First thing that I think has to be said on this topic of the passing of Mr. Kevin Samuels is none of the black women who chose to go on his platform were forced to do so. He didn't beg any of them. He didn't manipulate any black women into coming on his platform. They all did so consciously of their own free decision. They came willingly. His platform was supported by women, and he has just as many female defenders as he has male defenders. And so therefore, to some degree, although I likewise did not agree with his message or his methods, many sisters who are suggesting that Kevin Samuels created this rift between black men and black women, they're being disingenuous. 75% of the vitriol, the hostility, and the vilification that black women are now showing towards Kevin Samuels would be more rightly placed or directed towards the queendom, the sisterhood, not Kevin Samuels. If anything, he exposed it, he exploited it, and he marketed the pre-existing differences between black men and black women, but he did not birth them. And so I'm disappointed in both the way that black men and black women are reacting to Kevin Samuels' death. On the side of the sisterhood, I'm seeing black women say things like, I'm throwing a party to celebrate his death. I've seen a sister say that. I've seen other women say, yes, we should be praising God for this. We should be honoring the ancestors that he is dead. But did you have the same energy for the police that killed Trayvon Martin? Did you have the same energy for the police who killed Breonna Taylor and Sandra Bland? I mean, what about the enemies of the black community? Did you throw a party when they were convicted or murdered or whatever the case may be? You don't show that type of vitriol to the enemies of black people, but yet you'll show it to Kevin Samuels. And then on the side of the brother's attorney, I take issue with the way in which many of our men are elevating him to the level of a black liberation martyr. Kevin Samuels was not a black activist. He did not have a history of grassroots work. I'm not aware of anything he did to fight against police injustice, mass incarceration, miseducation, gentrification, access to wealth. He was a businessman. He was a very successful businessman who used his platform to market his views on black male-female relationships to a tune of $3+ million. And I have no problem with people celebrating him as a businessman. I have no problem with people applauding the professional manner in which he offered his narrative to black men and black women. Three-piece suit, very calm, very professional, the ambiance of his platform. I had no problem with the way he conducted himself. But the method and the message I totally disagree with. And I support black men who want to support Kevin Samuels, but it is disingenuous and it is wrong, Dr. King and Medgar Evers and Malcolm X and Fred Hampton and the most honorable Marcus Garvey, to elevate this man's work to the level of martyrhood or saintdom when he has no history of grassroots activism or work. He was a businessman who did a very good job offering his opinions on male-female relationships.
We've gotten to a point in our society where it's very difficult to believe literally any narrative coming out of the mainstream media. And when it comes to this narrative about his activities on the last night of his life, very little of it is adding up. And I think that we have to take that in consideration, both in considering his physical, perhaps, assassination, but in the character assassination that we've seen happen thereafter. When you start seeing black women literally throwing parades and celebrating on the grave of Kevin Samuels because he has done the horrible and unforgivable action of telling the truth, it comes down to the white power structure being able to influence what you believe to be black femininity and black feminism, as opposed to what is actually important to supporting the black community.
There were truths in his message, but he chose to offer those truths in one of the most abrasive ways that you possibly could. He did not couch his assessments of black women in a loving or supportive manner. He gave them brutally. But I think that the brutal manner in which he offered his narrative is what gave birth to his rise on the social media platform. Had he not been brutal, he may not have been that successful. See, the contradiction of those who take issue with the disrespectful manner in which Kevin Samuels criticized black women, the hypocrisy lies in the fact that they listened to gangster rap music that disrespected them far more and far worse than Kevin Samuels did, but they're not wishing for the death of any of those artists. You see, they watch reality shows and they follow entertainers who have had some of the most disrespectful things to say about black women, but yet and still none of those entertainers or athletes were criticized or condemned as much as Kevin Samuels, and those people have made more money than Kevin Samuels, and they still happen to be walking on the earth. So we have to call a spade a spade. You know, I think, though, that in my personal opinion, Kevin Samuels' critique of black women and his prioritization of finances and physical attractiveness as being the two most important things in making someone a high value man, a high value woman, a high value mate, I don't agree with that at all. Because black men in this racist American society are often victimized by not being given adequate economic opportunity. So to put so much emphasis on money as being the determinant as to whether you can find you a quality woman, I reject that. And on the flip side, black women who have been so victimized by European standards of beauty forced upon them, I thought that Kevin Samuels' a reinforcement of those European standards of beauty on black women as what they need to measure themselves up against, I thought that was unfair. And to your point, the fact that he was found with a woman, a non-black woman, and because Kevin Samuels was a businessman and not an activist, I don't know if I could consider that an act of hypocrisy, because he played to the message black men wanted to hear, and he played to a market that made him a millionaire, at least in terms of views. So when you mentioned earlier that he was found to be broke after his death, I don't know how that's possible, because his videos were getting hundreds of thousands of views. He had a couple of videos that even had millions of views. So for the and he was putting out videos constantly. So I am at a loss to understand how a man who clearly was making $1 million out broke. I think that in and of itself is a mystery also.